Hey, Marco. Good morning for me. Good evening your time.
Hello. Hello. Good morning and good evening
How are you
and good
doing?
night and good afternoon, depending on the time zone.
Yeah, well, that always reminds me of the Truman Show. Every time I hear that, that was his like catchphrase. Yeah. How are you doing this Friday?
Doing well, doing well. Likely it's Friday. I still
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
backlog,
exactly.
and the weekend is usually the time where
Yep.
you flush the backlog and yeah,
It's good to
and
have you
start
back on.
to
I think
okay. Yeah,
I think this is
sorry.
our two. This is either our third or fourth time I think I've had you on. I know
I
once
think
very
so.
early on, about 2 years ago, when I was first starting this, you came on, I think, just to talk about DAX.
Yep.
No, yeah, so four. Then once with both you and Marco. Another time with you individually again. I think it was talking about the dax.do
Ah,
website
yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah.
exploring that, and then this one now for Bravo. Okay, so yeah, so this is the
Yep.
fourth time you've been on, so welcome back for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, bravo. So just to figure out what we should do, because I don't know if I mean we have a lot of uh, internals and for example how to manage a template, and I would like to focus on that, but I don't know what is your feeling about this. Should we start with a quick overview of Bravo as a tool and then go to the template part, or what do you think?
I always consider it landing a plane with a
Yeah.
presentation. So you're starting from like the 35,000 foot level, get a nice like
Okay.
broad
Okay.
broad picture, and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
land it. I do want to just like one comment that I'm just gonna bring up that I think is fantastic is
Yeah.
I brought the Pope of Dax, and then they're very they're very happy to have you on the show. I think
Oh,
just
thank
as
you.
I'll say as a quick little elevator pitch for you. I know that for the rare exception of the individual who doesn't know who you are, between you and Alberto, you both run SQL BI, and you've been pretty much
Yeah.
just living and breathing the DAX space for the last 15 years.
No.
That's approximately when it came out.
Sometime. Yeah,
Sometime we don't count
yeah,
years anymore.
sometime.
It's some time ago.
No, no. Yeah, the
Yeah.
mathematic for me is up to 3 years ago.
Mm,
More than that, a few
yep.
years ago. So it's
Eh,
easy.
okay. Okay. Those are the
Few
time
years ago.
windows. One
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
2 years,
exactly.
a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Okay.
few. It's it's a good way to to manage the
Exactly.
time.
I agree. But yeah, today I know we're here to talk about a tool that's been out for at least it came out in beta about 8, 7, 8 months ago. In the spring, I
Yeah,
remember of last year, and
yeah,
since
yeah, yeah,
then it's been continuing to get updates, and I know
yeah,
you're continuing to add features as well to it. That
yeah.
little nice little navigation pane on the left is going to continue to get filled up with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
icons.
So yeah, that's the idea. That's the hope. Now we're busy with other things, but sooner or later we will have time again to bring other feature to Bravo too. Yeah, because yeah, we have to share the time across many things. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean
yeah, agreed.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bravo is a tool that is free and open source, and everybody can contribute to the tool. Even though most of the contribution are actually bug people submitted bugs, which is good because this way we can fix them.
Hmm.
There are not many people that write code in C sharp or JavaScript. In this case, JavaScript, TypeScript. Bravo is written in C sharp and TypeScript. These are the two languages used in Bravo. And yeah, the community of developers usually does not intersect much the community of Power BI users. So few people
Yeah.
work on it, and yeah,
Well, and there's a big difference, I think, in what can be identified versus the Power Pro user to a degree, and the uh,
mm.
more of a novice user, or someone maybe not novice, just less experience with certain tool sets and other stuff. So I've found what I
Yeah,
think as you're just describing with your tool and every other external tool that I've seen across any of these, they
yeah.
all seem to really grow organically once community feedback can start getting provided for them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but so the idea, just to introduce Bravo, so we can see some example. But the idea was to create a tool to help common tasks of people who can have no background in advanced tools, but also to help people that have some background in advanced tools. But for common operations, having a quicker user interface, easier to use, and also providing a few features that could be interesting for companies, to be honest. Because for example, what the work we have done for the dates, which is where actually I want to spend more time. It's probably it's I think once understood, and we should do a better job in communication with. I already produced one video, another one is in the documentation, and we have to write more articles probably. But yeah, the idea is that you have a tool that helps you enriching your Power BI model with tables, measures, for example, for the time intelligence, and to perform other operations. I don't know if we want to start looking at just a quick tour. So,
Yep. No, I was going to say, and just before we start, one question that I did get a couple of times from the video that I released earlier this week, showcasing the cards with states that you have from one of your many branches of things that you do in the Power BI space. That license is free in perpetuity. That comes with the card with
states. Yes. So, just to full disclosure, Bravo is an open source tool. Free open source, everybody can get the code and do whatever they want. The MIT license is very, very open. We didn't want to protect anything. Bravo gives us visibility, of course, but is the only way. I mean, we don't charge for anything else other than having our logo in the UI. And of course, we do this because we like it and we're passionate. But at the end of the day, it's also an operation in terms of visibility for the brand. OKVids is a company that actually sell custom visuals. A few of these custom visuals are free, and they will continue to be free in the form they are today. It's possible that new versions in the future of a few of these visuals will have additional features that will require a license, because otherwise, it's unsustainable to pay someone that actually has a job developing the components without having revenue. So there should be a balance. So in this case, Bravo is paid by a contribution of the company that we have that at the end of the day sells video courses or consulting or something like that. And so it's like instead of spending in advertising, we spend in tools, and the result is similar. We prefer to spend in tools, and probably is a win-win for many people this way.
Exactly. And I think just to close off that conversation, a parallel that, as you just mentioned, of would kind of be like how Tabular Editor eventually had a paid version, Tabular Editor 3, but they didn't take any existing features and put them behind a paywall. They just added new features that eventually had to be paid. But cards with states would be something that in its form today would continue to be offered in that version free. But maybe someday a more robust version of it might come out that's like a premium version or something.
I mean, maybe. We have to find, we have the thing is that everybody, I mean, we all love free things, but there's always a price to pay for everything, also for something that is free. In this case, we actually try to be very transparent. So we're not saying, oh, we do this because we are nice to the other people. Yes, of course, we are nice to the other people. But at the end of the day, it's not just a few nights. I mean, Bravo is an investment of many people working and, 100%. Paid by the company to do that. So it's, I mean, I can do in my free time, I can do something, but this is actually a completely different level. So and not to mention what is DAX Studio today. And DAX Studio 3 is a product that is comparable to products that are that are produced by software companies, but it's actually free, open source. And so the thing is finding a sustainable economic model. And so everybody should understand that. If it is sustainable, it means for everyone. So for who consume the tool, who produce the tool, and so on. And in a perfect world, Microsoft will pay for everything. But I think that it's understandable that Microsoft cannot pay anyone that creates a tool just because they created a tool, because of course it's hard. So if they start to pay open source tools, when do they stop? Now I'm not.
Well, I was going to say, like, just as one little like fun factoid about that. They tried to do that in a way, not with open source, but I mean, like back when they were trying to make Windows Phone a thing, they were offering, it was like $100 or $1,000 per app or something like that for every person who would make an app. What did that make? A ton of really bad apps where people just started creating those. Yeah. So you don't want to start doing things like that. Yeah.
Economically sustainable model means that it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Model where you throw money out of the window usually doesn't work well. So that's anyway. So
flip over.
Do we want to start?
Yeah.
So here we go. We have a Power BI model. A Power BI model where we install Bravo as an external tool. So if you go, let me move in the window here, the web page where you can download Bravo. So bravo.bi. So Bravo for Power BI, we found this short URL, bravo.bi. You can guess that we decide a name after we found the URL, not the opposite. It's a trick. And Bravo is an external tool. So when I open Bravo, what happens is that I have an external tool connected to my Power BI model. Now, you can also open Bravo and connect Bravo to another existing Power BI desktop application, or you can connect to powerbi.com with your account. But of course, the number of operations you can do is limited when you connect to the service. What you can do with Bravo? Bravo is a tool that helps you doing 4 things, basically. The first one, analyze the model. Well, I want to know where I'm consuming more memory for my model. And so this is a very, very quick overview. I want to see all the other columns so I can actually expand the smaller columns so I can see all of them, and I can also group them by table, and I can see different visualization that quickly show me where I'm consuming the memory of my model. Now, there is a highlight of the columns that are not, let's say, referenced by measures and other expressions in the model, but we do not check that this column is used or not in a report, for example. That would be nice to have.
This is other reports, right? Like a hub and spoke scenario where you have one model, multiple lean reports connected to it. Yeah, because it can detect for the report in the same file if these are being used.
When we implement that, yes. Now it is not implemented. So now the only thing that we do, we just check the dependencies within the tabular model. We don't look at the report. Okay, so we have no idea whether a column is used or not, and the description tries to explain this. It's possible technically to create, to extend the tool, and this is something we would like to do, so that we analyze the content of the report file. So if you are using Power BI Desktop, we could actually check whether you use that column in some page of the report, in some visual, and so at that point it will not longer be unreferenced, the column. So basically, we don't do much more than that, but an important feature is this one. Save as VPEX means that I can save in a file the information that I can provide to someone else. The file that I generate is actually a zip file that contains a number of JSON files, so you can open them with an editor, see that we are not retrieving any data. The file that you create this way is very small compared to the file, to the original PBX file, and it doesn't contain data, it just contains metadata. So the number of tables, the number of columns, the number of rows in each table, the number of unique values in each column. So basically the same information that allow us to draw this chart. And once you have this VPEX file, you can load this VPEX file from another tool like Bravo or DAX Studio or Vertipack Analyzer to give more insight to the model. This could be very useful when you have a problem. You have to provide assistance to someone remotely, and you don't have access to the PBX file. The PBX file is sensitive, has sensitive data. You cannot get a copy of that, but you want to get an overview. This is very, very useful. I use this, every day. And so this is just another tool that can extract this VPEX file. When I start a consulting gig with some customer, the first question is, I don't even start the meeting if you don't send me the VPEX file. That's because this way I have everything on my desktop. It's just more productive for everyone. The second feature we have is format DAX. And basically we can look at the measure we have in the model. Now, this is a case where I don't have actually complex measures here, but whenever you see the measure, you can say, okay, I want to format this. And of course, because we're using a service, DAX formatter, to do that, there is a warning saying, look, we are sending data over internet, over a service. So do you want to do that or not? So you can enable this automatic preview forever, so you no longer get asked about that. Now I just want to see one because I wanted to show the measure. And in this case, there is nothing to format. But of course, if you have seen DAX formatter, this is the same service just embedded in Bravo. The useful feature is that you can select all the measure, format all the selected measure done. In 2 clicks, you format all the measures in your file. And it is usually very, very, very quick. Just 1-2 seconds, done. The fourth feature, because I want to do at the end the manage dates, is export data. Now this is the same feature we have in DAX Studio. If you use DAX Studio, you have exactly the same feature. Actually, you have a more advanced feature, because in DAX Studio you can select the columns, you can filter the rows, you can create a query and extract only a subset of the data. But sometimes you just want to give me the entire content of this table in an Excel file or in a CSV file. Okay, let's go. Customer and export as Excel file or CSV. And if you select 2 tables and you export an Excel file, what you get as a result is a single file with two worksheets, each one with a file. So if let me say this in demo and see if I can open the file from here. Hopefully this will work. And here we go. Go, Excel. You see here the number of rows. We have, here we go. We have the customer, and we have 5,000 customer, and date, we have 31,000 dates. So the 31,000 rows in the dates table, because probably we have too many years, and this is not optimized, of course, but it's just to show some demo. So
if there is if there's a table in the Vertipack model that's over 1 million, because the million row eliminated in Excel, what would pop up?
We don't actually, we cannot export more than 1 million rows, and I don't remember if we warn in advance. Probably yes, but you can still save this in a CSV files. I think we truncated. I don't remember. Okay,
so Excel might be truncated, but then the CSV file can export more than 1 million.
Oh yeah. In the CSV files you can get, if you have enough time and storage, you can export 1 billion rows. Why not?
Okay, perfect.
You need a lot of coffee though. But...
I was gonna say, and probably a bit of RAM on your computer. Yeah.
All right, because it has to be materialized too. Yeah, you need a lot of RAM too. Yeah, you need a beast as a computer, not a computer, a beast. Okay, so finally, manage dates. Manage dates is what I would have liked to have many years ago. Because basically this solves the problem of having a date table and implementing time intelligence in the measures. What does it mean? First, you see that this is, so let me go back to this model. Okay, this model already has a date table, right? And if we take a look here, we see that oops, too fast. We have this date table, which has 2 relationships with sales. Okay, so far so good, it works. And this date table is a calculated table. So if I click on date, I can see that date actually is just 1 line. Why this? Because this is actually the date table that has been created by Bravo. And why the date table is just a single line? Well, guess what? When you select, for example, the calendar hierarchy here, and you put this in the rows, usually whenever you click any column in the fields, if you are clicking on a column that is part of a calculated table, by default, you see the entire definition of the calculated table over here.
And guess what? Very annoying. Yes.
I know. Now, I asked for many years, please stop doing this. But at a certain point, you say, okay, what can I do while I wait that they will fix this? And the idea was relatively simple. We create 2 date tables. One is the real one. Here we go. This hidden table has the real definition of the date table. And the other is the one that has only a reference to the template. Now, if you think about this, Marco, are you creating 2 copies of the date table just because you want to avoid this? Yes. And yes, I'm doing this. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, the entire reason why I use Power BI Desktop is to be productive. And this makes me more productive. This is an
and
option,
arguably,
though.
like a date table isn't that big. You have maybe a few thousand rows tops, so it's like it's a pin drop in the size of what like a fact table would be. So it technically adds a tiny bit of size, but it's insignificant.
I know, but this is just to explain why we have this complexity behind. Now, as I said, okay, I created this date table initially. Then I can show you, because at the beginning, of course, you don't. If you already have a date table, we don't override the date table if it is an imported table. So you have to remove it and then you create your one. But if you have a calculated table, use it as a date table, we can just replace it. And we know whether this calculated table has been created by by Bravo, or it's a calculated table that you created before. What does it mean? Let's go back to Bravo, and please note that whenever I click on Bravo, I don't open a new window. I basically move the focus on the existing window. Small details, but important. Let's say that I say, well, I need weeks. I need weeks in my date table. So I'm going to change the template behind the date table, right? So when I will click preview changes, now, sorry, I have to use a smaller font because I want to show you, the list of the parameters we have here, a preview of the result of the template we're going to apply, and a number of other parameters that we can configure, because we can say the first year, the last year, I want to do this automatically, I want to base this on the active relationship, I want to base this on the existing column. You can do many things. So, I mean, this is not important. I think, okay, there are many parameters here. And of course, there are many countries and there are many languages, and we support not all of them, but a number. Now, this is just the regional format, but you can also specify yeah, I mean, it's not directly. Okay, so basically we automatically adapt to the model language by default. But if you choose a specific language, if we had a translation for that language, we use the translation, right? So otherwise you get the English. But for example, I don't know, French, Spanish, German, Japan. I mean, we have a lot of Portuguese. So there are many languages that are already supported. And by the way, the languages are the result of the community, because actually what we did, we said, okay, there is Bravo. Now these are the files. If you can just translate them. Yes, of course, there is an automatic translator, but in this context, small details are important. So something that has been handcrafted is usually better. And yeah, we can also choose the name of the tables. Now we cannot change these names because, of course, I'm going to replace the existing one. And so I will break the existing calculation if I will change the name. But when I create the date table for the first time, I can provide a different name. For example, you want to provide a localized name of the date table, for example. And then we have the holidays, another story. So you can choose which country we want the holidays and blah, blah, blah. And then time intelligence, but one step at a time. Now, remember, we already have a date table. I'm choosing a different one. Let's go and preview changes and see what happens. Now, I'm still not doing anything at the moment. I'm just saying, show me what you are going to do on my model. Now, the first time you will see that here, every element will be an A, add. M means modify. D means delete. And sorry, now we can zoom in a little bit. So we can, for example, we're going to delete the calendar hierarchy because in the week calendar, we don't have this hierarchy. We have another one. We're going to modify these 2 columns. We're going to add these 3 columns that were not present in the standard one, and so on. So you can see for each table what is going to happen. And for the measures, but let's go to the measure in a moment. Now, if I apply the changes, what happens? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here we go. Done. If I go back to Bravo, you see that when it works, something is not looking good to me. Let's see. No, it worked. It worked. It was just not refreshing this the first time. So for some reason, the fields pane here is not refreshed because I still see that.
If you close and open the panel, will that do it?
Yeah,
sometimes...
usually yes, but probably because I had a calendar here, the calendar hierarchy. I don't know. It's strange because if I look at the table, let's just double check this. If I go in the table date, the visualization is strange.
Yeah, exactly. It's partially loading.
Strange, but this seems. I think that Power BI is getting confused. So when this happens, a good idea is to save the file with another name and open it again. But which could be a good idea. So let me say we stretch the features supported in Power BI Desktop to do this. To be honest, so let's call this Demo Bravo 2 and close it. Now I open this again. Give me 1 second. I go to the other monitor and I retrieve the file. And in a second, of course, now Bravo is connected to a model that is no longer valid. So I'm going to close Bravo. We're opening Power BI and actually changing dynamically the date table when you have a report open is never a good idea. I should have moved the focus on another page, but let's see what happened now. Here we go. Now we have the right definition of the date table. So actually my changes have been applied to the file. It is just that the Power BI Desktop UI didn't refresh the UI. But when this happens, if you know what is happening, you just close don't change anything, close the file, save everything, maybe in another file so you don't overwrite a previous working model, and open it again. Usually it fixes the problem like it did this time. And now I can navigate my pivot table, for example, my matrix, by using year and quarter and week. So if I go here, now you see that we have a fiscal year that starts in Q1 that have the week, the period and the week. And so now we have a 4-4-5. So we have 4 weeks, and then 5 weeks. And now we don't have 5 weeks because we don't have data. But if we go to the next one, probably we should see that we have 5 weeks in the third quarter of in the third period of the second quarter, and so on. Now, so far so good. Another thing that we do too is to implement the time intelligence function. So if you see this area, you see that this was not present before. This is a folder that has many versions of the measures that I have in the model. And for each measure, we have, let me enlarge this so we can see this better. For each measure, we have previous quarter, previous week, previous year, quarter over quarter, and so on. Now, this is for margin, and we have the same for margin percentage, and the same for sales amount, and the same for blah, blah, blah. Now, usually, so these prefixes that we use are, follow a particular convention. And if you know what you're doing, usually I never open this. I do, okay, I want to get, so let's remove this from this one. So let's say that I have a sales amount here, and I want to see the previous week, previous quarter sales amount. Here we go. PQ sales amount, here we go. And I move this here. And I want, I don't know, quarter over quarter as a percentage. Quarter over quarter, oh, there is a space. Percentage sales amount, here we go. It just works. What does it mean? So if I go back to Bravo now, Bravo has a template that generates for each measure that we select all the time intelligence calculations that are defined in this template. So you see that now that I open Bravo, Bravo recognizes that my model has this template that I used before. So all my previous parameters have been restored here. So for example, oh, I made a mistake. I should have started in July. Let's go. Done. One click, preview changes, and then apply changes, and it just works. But
now I would guess if you make any edits to the DAX template code, at that point, it would probably not be able to recognize that as a template anymore. It would just think it's a custom calendar table that someone built, or
no. It is smarter than that. I will explain you.
Oh, okay.
Let's,
I'm impressed. I'll be impressed then.
I can explain you how it works. So basically, the time intelligence is a flag. Yes, no, right? Because you can say, no. I want to create my measures. Just give me a date table. Okay, fine. But by default, we enable this and we apply the time intelligence to all the measures. But if you say, no, too much. I want to only use the measure defined in this table, or I want to only use these two measures, you select, the granularity that you want. Now, when we do this, we store in the tabular model for each entity that we create this way, we store additional metadata so that we know that that table, that measure has been created by Bravo. Which means that what happens if now, remember, I changed a parameter in the first month of the year is now July, and I decided for some reason I don't want to include the cost and the quantity in the time intelligence. I want to just have the time intelligence for margin and sales amount. Before I click preview changes, just to make sure here, today I have the time intelligence. Oh, let's remove this one. The time intelligence is available for all the measures, right? So we have, here we go, total cost and total quantity, right? Now, what happens if I say, no, well, I made a mistake, so I choose the measures, and in the measure, I only want these three measures. And so now what is going to happen is that Bravo says, okay, so it analyzes the model and says, okay, I'm going to modify the date table, because of course, by changing the first month, there is a side effect on a number of columns. But in terms of time intelligence, we're going to change something. You see that now we're going to modify these. These are going to be deleted. And you see that the sales doesn't have any change because the formula we're going to apply will be the same. So there are no changes needed. If I made another change that will require to change the measure, you will see that that measure is changed. If I added a measure that was not present before, I will see that measure added automatically. Okay? So apply changes, done. Now with 5 measures, we had previously like probably 200 measures in the model. And now we reduced to probably 120, something like that. So if I go back to Power BI, this time it worked. Lucky this time. You see that I have only these 3 measures. It just works.
So like Apple. I have a question related to that. Yep. So curiously, it's great to be able to create like templates like this for these calculations. My other curiosity is, because time intelligence is probably one of the best use cases for calculation groups. Is that something that would ever be feasible, where if you wanted to add any kind of time intelligence pattern, they could choose between dedicated measures or just a calc group that could do the same thing? That's
a good question. So the plan we have, we actually want to implement the calculation groups in the template library so that we can generate calculation groups as templates. However, I don't think that time intelligence is a good use case for the calculation groups. Let me try to explain my position. Of course, when calculation groups have been introduced, everyone said, "Oh, the calculation group is wonderful for the time intelligence." But if we look carefully at the problem we want to solve, at the end of the day, you need, so the ultimate goal of a semantic model is to enable the end user to obtain the report that they want and to do the analysis that they want in the easiest way possible, quickly, with any kind of combination of calculation they want, right? Maximum flexibility. This is the ultimate goal. Now, the calculation group introduced something that from the point of view of the consumption experience has many limitations. A few limitations have been lifted over the years, and it took years, but others are not going, are still there. For example, let's say that you want to do the report that I'm going to show you now. And for whatever reason, you want to do exactly the report that I created now. Let me show you this. Sorry, probably this is visible enough, right? Okay. So we have sales amount, then I have two particular time intelligence calculation over sales amount, then I have a different measure, and for this measure, I want to apply a different time intelligence calculation. No, sorry, not this margin percentage, but let's say margin, I should have used in time intelligence, let's go today growth. I mean, it doesn't make sense what I'm doing in terms of analysis, but I just want to show you the report layout I'm going to create. You cannot do this report with if you use the calculation group.
Yep, agreed.
But you can stop much earlier. What if you want to control the sort order of the time intelligence calculations, right? So there are a number of things that you cannot do.
Agreed.
And actually,
agreed.
you can do that in Excel. You use Excel, wonderful. You can use calculation groups, no problems. Because in Excel, you have a feature named set that actually solves this problem. You can create any combination of intersection between dimensions. It just works. Power BI doesn't have this feature. So from the consumption experience, at the end of the day, remember, from the point of view of the end user, what do you want to do? I want to do the margin, and I want to do, I don't know, a year to date. Here we go. Now, probably I used the wrong order. YDD margin. Here we go. I have YDD margin. So it's not perfect. As you see, I had to use the right order, and it would be nice if the order doesn't matter. But again, it's once you understand the logic, it's easy to use. And I don't think, and you don't have any limitation, and it just works. Of course, if I had to write manually those measures, no way. But calculation groups were a feature that solved the report author problem of not writing too much code. The moment I delegate to another tool to generate the code for me, I don't care having 200 or 300 or 400 measures in the model, because this makes my users happy. And so
that's fair, because I mean that's one of the benefits of calc groups is to reduce development time. It also is just small amount to reduce the number of unique fields in the fields list. But yeah, I see your point where the flexibility of configuration and design is a lot higher, and because of the many limitations with the matrix, the pivot table equivalent
is if you try to explain the value. I love calculation groups. Okay, I love calculation groups. I'm just saying they are not the best tool for the job today in Power BI because of the limitations that Power BI has in terms of consumption experience for the calculation groups. That's my point.
They to me, they shine more, not necessarily to do the measure thing. I mean, that is a nice benefit, but it's when you want to have a slicer, or you want to be able to change around the data, or do other things that require the filter pane or other stuff. There
are a number of things that you can do with the calculation groups. It's absolutely important. Just for and for this reason, in my view, the moment we have an additional feature in Bravo to have the calculation groups, I mean, having templates for calculation groups, the first thing we will do, we will implement DAX patterns with the calculation groups in Bravo. That's the obvious thing to do. And yeah, beside time intelligence, because time intelligence, as I said, is a solved problem this way. You might like it or not, but from the end user point of view, it just works. And that's the important thing.
That's fair.
Now, do we have time to see the more interesting thing to me? Because this what I did so far, if you have seen some video of Bravo, is nothing new, right? But the thing is, you might not like the template that we used, right? Because we have a number of templates available, but these templates may be not what you want for some reason. So we can do something like customize them. So if you go in templates, you see that in this case, I have two templates that have been published by the system administrator of my company. So Bravo can receive templates that have been published within your company. Thanks to Active Directory, you can push information through the registry, and basically you can broadcast to all the users to the company, guys, you have to use this. We also have a setting that you can distribute with a policy in Azure that stop all the other templates. So if you are an administrator and you want your user to use your date table, nothing else, you can. So that's a feature that is available. But let's say that at the beginning, okay, but I'm the only one, I don't have a company. Okay, but I was just explaining these two. When you see type organization, you see I cannot change them, right? They are not under my control. They are under the control of the administrator. But I can create a new template. So let's create this template. Friday, okay? When you create a template, you say, okay, I want to copy an existing one. We don't start from scratch. We don't start with an empty template. You want an empty template, just copy one and delete everything. Because usually you start from something and then you change some detail, right? And so let's start, for example, from the standard one, right? Let's go to the standard, the simplest possible model template. So I create, and what happens at this point, I have to choose a directory, call this Friday, where I store the template. Now, in this directory, in this folder, we will have a number of files. Even though at the end of the day, the result of the template is a single JSON file that has all the rules. But in order to be able to edit the template, working with a single file would be a nightmare, similarly to what happens with the bin file in Power BI. And so also to make it easier to the editing experience that I will show you in a moment in Visual Studio Code, we have a model where we have different files, each one for different tasks, so that it is easier to share part of the template with other templates, for example. So that's one example. So there are two things you have to do in order to edit a template. First of all, download and install Visual Studio Code, which is free. And in this case, it's produced by Microsoft. And I already installed it. So I already did. Otherwise, you have the link to open the page in the browser to download Visual Studio Code. So basically, if I go here, I open this page, and I can download Visual Studio Code. Second, customize Visual Studio Code, adding the Bravo template editor extension. What does it mean? Let me show you in a moment. When I click continue, now we open Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code says, do you trust the author of this? Yes, I trust him. I mean, I would be in trouble if I don't trust myself. Could be a good idea, but and then you see that I have this space, right? My workspace, the folder Friday has a number of files. A few files are just for the support of Visual Studio Code. Other files are for other reasons. And you see that there is this folder which will contain the result of it's like we compile these files into a single one. So it's like you have a source code and you have an executable, similar to something like that. So Visual Studio Code will take care of updating this JSON file. You don't have to touch it. But if you want to take a look, this is a single JSON file that has everything. The definition of the date, the definition of the holidays, the definition of the measures, everything. What you should do you should just work in the files of this folder, source, src. And you see that these files are easier to understand. Of course, we also have a documentation that I will show in a moment. We have a file for defining the date table, a file for defining the holidays, a file for defining the measures generated for the time intelligence, a file for the localization of everything, and a file of configuration that has other parameters. So usually we don't touch much of this. For example, I see a number of details here, but if you want to do very, very strange customization, you probably need to also edit this file. Let's do something simple, right? We want to customize the date template. Now, let me describe what we have here. This is a JSON file, and the idea is that I just have a number of expressions that I will use to generate the calculate table with the dates. So every column is like, imagine you have a calculate column, right? You have an expression that defines the DAX code. For example, let's take a look at something simple. So you see that I have the weekday number, name that I have here is generated by using the function weekday. And then I have these two parameters, underscore date, double underscore weekday calculation type. In reality, when you see these double underscore, we are not creating a column, we are creating just a variable. So these are variables that are defined for each row. If I scroll down, I have the actual columns. For example, the year column will be equal to the year number expression, which is a variable. And if I look at the year number expression, the year number expression is year of date, double underscore date. Double underscore date is created as a variable that is equal to date. Date is the column reference for this special function. There are a small number of special functions that are placeholders to generate the code that includes all the business logic that you define in your parameters. For example, I said, oh, I want to create only the range of dates for the date columns of these two tables. Okay, so the code in DAX will implement that business logic so that every time you refresh the model, you always have that range of dates. So you don't have to specify, I want from this year to that year, because in a few months, you have to update the table. No, we want to create something that you can use over time. Now, if you look at each single column, you should realize that at the end of the day, there is some documentation you have to understand for a few special placeholder we use. Something is here for the localization and other things like that. But at the end of the day, each column is a simple definition. What is more difficult is to put everything together so that we generate DAX code and we see the result. So how can I edit? So let's make a change, for example. Let's say that I want to, I don't know, I want to change the, let's see, the year, the month name. I want to create the month name in uppercase, okay? This should be easy. I put upper and I do everything uppercase, right? So it should be easy. Okay, so first of all, wait a minute. How can I see the result? Because what's the point of editing a JSON file? So you see that once you install, so if you go in extensions, you see that I installed this Bravo template editor. This extension makes Visual Studio Code aware of the template definition that we have for DAX. And you see that this shows this icon for the Bravo template editor. When you go here, you can connect Visual Studio Code to an instance of Power BI, because we cannot do the job of analyzing DAX and generating the data and so on. But we can use Power BI to do that. We can generate the DAX code and ask to Power BI, please execute this code, show me the result without creating the actual table and just show me the preview. So now I connect my Visual Studio Code to Bravo template editor, and all of a sudden you see that. Remember, I have a workspace open because I open a folder that has a number of files. As a consequence, when I go in the Bravo editor, Bravo knows that the meaning of the content of the source folder will generate this: tables and measures, dates. I will generate 4 tables, and I will generate all these measures. Okay.
That's so nice to be able to see the preview of that built into the.
Well, we didn't even start.
I
Because
know.
if I click on date, what I see is the actual
Oh
content.
man.
Because this is the DAX code of date, and this is the preview of the content. And if I go to date auto template, I see the actual DAX code for that. So let's see if I can do something interesting at this point. If you remember, we were editing date template, right? So I always have to remember, okay, this way, if you double click this, you pin the page. And so when I go back and I show date auto template, now I should be able to do this. So I think I want to do this. I want to put this here, and I want to put the template bit at the bottom. There should be a way to do this. I don't remember. Anyway, let's do this. I'm sure there is a way to put this in. Maybe this one, toggle panel. Let's see. No, I don't remember. Anyway, there should be a way to do a better job than what I did now. And of course, you need a better, a larger monitor, but just to give you an idea. So what happens now? So you see that I have here, I have the definition of the, let's see, month name somewhere. Okay, this is the format, okay? Where is this format? Let's take a look at let's remove for a moment the preview, or let's reduce this. If I search for format, you see that the code for generating the format is here. Actually, we have several columns, but the month column is this one, which generates this code. So format, date, month, format string. In this particular case, the code is actually the same, right? There are no differences. But look, not really, because this get ISO will generate a different expression depending on the customization for the language. So there is an additional parameter that will be added at the third argument of the format, will generate the format in which language. For example, in French, in Spanish, in Italian, something like that. When you have 3 parameters, the third parameter in format specify which language you want to use, regardless of the language of the model you have in Power BI. And if I scroll on the right here, you see that I should have the month name here, which is now 3 letters only, and 1 uppercase and 2 lowercase. Okay.
Okay.
I think that there should be a way to do this. I don't remember. Oh, here we go. No. Oh, here. Yeah, it works. Now, it's just that I didn't want to do exactly this, but anyway, it is better than nothing. So at this point, I want to do my upper, and oops, sorry, keyboard, and I close this. Okay. Now, so far, nothing happened, but now I click here, and nothing happened because I didn't save. You see, when you see this dot, I didn't save this, right? As soon as I save the file, Control S, here we go. Maybe that this is not the right. Oh, weekday, sorry. I have to go here, month, upper format. So, of course, we don't refresh the preview and the DAX code every time you change anything, because it could just generate errors. But when you save the file, you actually display the preview, and it could be very quick because it's Control S. If you know how to do that, it's very, very, very fast, also with the keyboard. Of course, for the date table and the holidays table and all the other tables, you can do this and see the preview of the data. For the measure, we cannot show the preview of the data. We can show the preview of the DAX code that is generated. Okay, so if I go back to the file, so let's remove this one now, and let's search for the time intelligence. Time intelligence is the template that defines every measure. Once again, think about the problem. How do we identify the column that you created in the table that correspond to the quarter, right? You could have translations, you could have different names, you could have a number of things. So what we do, we decorate tables, columns, measure with attributes that allow Bravo to understand what he did. And so we have seen before that I can replace part of the model without any problem. But more importantly, for the template, the template can be written in a way that is very generic and is applied to an existing table. The template library we have could be applied to an existing imported date table. We just don't have the UI to enable you to decorate your table with the attributes that will allow you to use the template on your table. You know, we don't have time to do everything in a single
Well, I mean,
step.
and in general, just the fact that you can, I don't want to say corporatize, the fact that you can enterprise this to a degree and provide these within an organization, I think is very, very impactful to allow for reusability of standard patterns and practices, and especially for people to be able to filter by the same date or time periods.
Yeah, as you can imagine, there are a number of details, and I just want to show you the documentation we have for this. If you go to docs.sqlbi.com Bravo, features, manage dates, and these three areas, customize date templates and template editor, we have a video, we have a number of details. The detailed documentation, though, is in another area, which is the DAX template. So DAX template is the library, is another open source C# code open source library on GitHub with the MIT license, which describe how to manage these files, right? So, I mean, the library does everything, but the documentation explains how to actually, what is the meaning of each parameter you can find in the JSON files. Okay, so for example, imagine that you want to define a new holiday that is not included because we provide a number of holidays for several countries, but we don't have the state holidays, we don't have the city holidays. So if you want to create a customized version of the holidays table for your company, for your particular city or state, you probably just need to add 2 or 3 things. But if you want to understand what is the right parameter for the specific holiday you have, because we define the holidays through the rule of the holiday. We don't just provide a list of dates. You say, okay, this holiday has, is the first Monday of this month in every year, or this is the 4 days before Easter, or something like that. So there are a number of parameters that allow you to create holidays in very, very different ways. Also, substitute holidays, and so there.
My favorite suggestion, honestly, for a holiday is this one: is you and Alberto putting your birthdays in there as a holiday to celebrate.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. A couple of just are you considering doing any kind of a repository? Because I know you have enterprise options for people to create for their company. A calendar template to use, but I'm wondering if there would be a benefit to people who built certain templates to provide it up there with, allowing other people to maybe leverage those and then build off of them.
At the moment, we didn't see. Okay, so the easiest way to start is publish on GitHub, create a repository and publish your template, and we will try to index something. If we realize that there are many templates, we could work on some repository or index or something. At the moment, I'm not aware of that. So at the moment, I don't know many people who created and customized a template. So I'm trying to say, guys, it's possible. We try to make it easier, also for ourselves. I mean, the first template I created without this editor. Believe me, it was a pain. It was a pain.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because with this editor, oh, come on. Once you know, okay, you have to, okay, it's not something that you can use in 5 minutes. I completely get this. But if you want to spend some time and invest on it, I think it's time well spent, to be honest, because it can save a lot of time. And the idea that you can standardize the date table in the company, I think is very, very, very useful.
I agree. And there's also a segue that I wanted to Greggy B that brought up a good question here that I think would be good to discuss as we're talking about also like where to contain the logic to make a counter to table. So as he mentions, general guidance would be to push ETL or any kind of refresh logic as far upstream as possible. And given that, what prompts the choice of building the date table in DAX versus maybe Power Query or the database?
That's a good question, because the problem is the following. A date table, so let's say that you have a table, the physical table with the dates, right? Now, you have the date table in SQL or in Power Query ready to use. How much time do you spend moving that data into your model and adding all the attributes that you need to make it usable? Hierarchies, sort by column, form a string, and so on. Okay, so it's a considerable amount of time. In a perfect world, we have Bravo that can be applied to an existing date table. I understand this, and believe me, it has been the foundation is designed this way. The foundation of this, let me show you. The foundation of this is the following. We have, this generates the date table. But this generated the date table, it does two things. It generates the content of the table, it generates the metadata. Now, in a perfect world, we just do the metadata on top of the existing table. It is not implemented today. It is not implemented in the library. It is not implemented in Bravo, but is doable, right? So first of all, is someone with goodwill and skills want to work on it? It's open source, just join the force. If you think that it's, I don't have skills, fine. I don't have time. But if you have money, you can hire a developer. I mean, that's the thing.
I mean, it's always a combination of time and money, right? Yeah, exactly.
So what is my incentive to produce the additional feature that is only useful for a small number of customers? Does it add enough value to our to myself, to our company, to justify the development, to justify spending my time or paying someone to do the job that will impact a small number of people? That I don't know, probably no, right? That's and that's the thing. So when I always try to repeat the sentence, we should all think to a sustainable economic model. A sustainable economic model means that it's sustainable. So over time, we don't have to fear, oh, if this guy, changes employers, it's gone. So this library is gone. We cannot use it. So we don't have to live with this fear, right? And we don't have to live with the fear that tomorrow morning there could be a bug and nobody is able to fix it. Personally, I'm impressed by the fact that for many companies, there is a rule: don't use open source software. The reason, non-written and not declared reason for that, is not because it is dangerous, but because if there is a problem, nobody is in charge for that. There is no liability and nobody knows who can do something. So the moment they have a vendor, from a legal point of view, they can say, oh, I will sue the company if they don't fix the problem. And if I have a damage, they will pay me if they are not broken, of course. So because actually for many things I have seen, the reason for the security is a no reason. And the funny thing is that these companies that have this mentality, then they use Visual Studio Code. You say, Marco, why? Right. Because Visual Studio Code is open source, free, and when you use it, you are accepting the license where you accept that the maximum liability for Microsoft is $1. So it's so if the problem is the liability, you can call Microsoft, but if you read the license, Microsoft says I mean, it's free.
Yeah, agreed.
It's free, right? So
yep.
So we have to think about this. So from a legal point of view, no, many people behave based on assumptions and prejudice, but to be honest, most of the people don't read the license, because if you read the license, you should not use any kind of open source software, regardless of the vendor, because the vendor does not declare itself as responsible for what could happen, right? If they erase your code and your drive because you're using that software, they're not responsible. Oh yeah, they're responsible for $1. Okay.
So I have a and there's a follow-up question to this a little bit about, again, just upstream versus downstream. So Ryan was just mentioning the wanting to have his Power BI model date and data warehouse date to be in sync. So curiously though, like, I mean, if you're bringing a calendar table in and your calendar table at least is built around the min max of, calendar year of whatever your back table is coming in, essentially in a way it's still staying in sync with the data warehouse data to a degree, I think, if I'm reading that correctly.
Okay, so let me elaborate on this. So I completely understand the problem, okay? And if you ask me as a BI consultant, the right thing to do is having the date table in a data warehouse, full stop. But even when you have the date table in the data warehouse and beside the current limitation, so today Bravo doesn't support that scenario, okay? So that's the thing. But Bravo, please remember, Bravo has not been designed for the advanced developer, has been designed for the end user who is in trouble getting a date table and just use auto date time because they don't know what to do. So that's the goal, okay? That's the goal. I agree that in a perfect world, with enough time, we have a better version of this tool that also can be applied on an existing table. But that day, you probably will still create columns that you don't have in the data warehouse just for aesthetic reason. For example, what about translations? Do you have all the translations in the data warehouse? Or, come on, it's Friday or venerdì in Italian or whatever other language. We don't care. I mean, the important part in the data warehouse is how many days are in a month, in a period, what is the fiscal year? These are the important information. If a month has 3 letters, 4 letters, uppercase, lowercase, we don't care. I mean, this is a problem of the report, but at the report level, I want to customize it. So it's possible that at a certain point, we might want to say, and I can show you this. The starting point for the date table, I think that potentially it is already possible to do that. We use this function, get calendar, just to generate the date table, a column with the date, right? But to be honest, if you can make the assumption that the model already has a table called the date DW, you could create the expression starting from that table and then adding the other columns. Why not? I mean, yes, you had to work more. I never thought about that. Maybe that there is some additional feature to be implemented to support it, but probably it's an easier path compared to all here or all there, because actually it cannot work this way. So yes, I will keep the business logic in one place, but at the same time, I will still continue to need the flexibility of creating additional columns for aesthetic reasons.
It's the same argument you even have for composite models sometimes, is where it's, you have a core model connected, but you need 5% customized items, columns, something for that particular report. And there's no, you're going to have resistance, or it just doesn't make sense to push it upstream, because why, add to 100 connected users something that's only needed for one. Yep. Okay. I think those are fair arguments. And I mean, it goes down to the, It has not been actually said, but it's the consultant phrase.
So you see
It
that
depends.
when you write calendar, so when we write get calendar is a special DAX function that generates this code. Now, if you use here a DAX expression that starts from your date table, it just works. So you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I agreed. I think that was a good question, and it allowed us to have I think a good conversation on the pros and cons of storage location and upstream, downstream. So I'm thanks, Greg, for bringing that one up for sure. This has been excellent so far. We're at about 10:10 at the moment. Was there any final things, little highlights that you wanted to cover as we start to wrap up the demos?
I don't know. There are so many things here because so just to give you a pointer also to this. So I think, let me see if I have the code here. DAX template. I hope we have the, So that's the GitHub repository. So if you are interested into what is behind this, so basically the DAX template is the library behind the generation of both the code for the date table and the measures and the calculated column, because you can also create calculated columns on an existing table. We're just missing at the moment the calculation groups. The calculation groups is the next step. I don't know when, because we are too busy with other things. But this is the source code of the library. This library can be used for many things. So nothing stops you to use just the library with some other tool. So for example, imagine you want to create a command line tool that just use the same templates we use in Bravo, but you create a pipeline that automatically pushes tables and measures all around your models in a pipeline, DevOps or something like that. You can. This code is ready for that. It's just that we don't have time to create examples, and maybe not many people is interested, but technically it is possible. So take a look.
I love the amount of with anything open source, just the amount of exposure to everything. I have one follow-up to Donald, which actually I think is good to clarify a couple of things. So the question is can you add calculated columns into the template? I asked for an elaboration. He mentioned to the date table.
Yes.
So technically you can just modify the table code, which adds more columns. You're not adding a column individually, but you can choose the columns you want in your calendar table to a degree in the templates or any of the other stuff.
So let me do some consideration.
Please, yeah.
The date table that I don't know. Okay, so the date table is this DAX expression. So if you change this DAX expression, the first time you apply the template with Bravo again, this is lost, okay? This is gonna be lost. But if you create a column here and you say, okay, my upper day is equal to upper of day something. Let me see if I have it. Day of week, okay? Here we go. So what is going on now? I created a calculated column, right? Which has a dependency on the result of the calculated table. But technically now we have a calculated table that generates a lot of columns and one calculated column I created, right? Now, what do you think will happen if I now go back to my Bravo window and I say, well, I changed my mind, and not here. I changed my mind, and not July, April. Okay? Remember, when we do this, we have to do a number of operations, and we actually destroy and rebuild the entire table. Crossing the finger, because I never tested this in a live demo. So
doing it live.
So I apply changes, and when this is done, I expect my calculate column to be still there and still working, because I still have a column with the same name. Of course, if I create a different template that doesn't have the same name, that calculate column will be still there, but invalid, right? So that should happen.
Yeah, I mean,
The
because
time it is
it's
spending
dependent.
is not a good sign. Anyway, let's see. Maybe that doesn't work. It's taking too much. Oh,
There we go.
congratulations. Done. So now we go back to Bravo. Let's just switch because I don't know how Power BI recognizes that something changed, but it's still there. It is still there. So it is still there. It is still working. It just works.
One follow-up question. This is he did elaborate also one more time related to that these dependencies work because it's the table calculates in the column from it. But let me see. Here we go. I can pop this up. So he was also referring to like maybe helper calculated columns. I mentioned that DAX debugger can be good for those too, versus needing to do a calc column specifically to generate some numbers for testing.
I don't understand well the question because actually
So I mean, back in the day, I used to do things like this where I had a complicated measure, and I would create some temporary columns with partial data to help me figure out how the calculation was working. So that's at least where my mind went.
So for performance reasons, we do not create. Okay, technically the template can create calculate columns. We simply don't use calculate columns because it will not be efficient from the point of view of the template. And more important, we don't apply calculate column to existing tables because this could have other side effects. Performance mainly for the refresh. We have what we call helper columns in the date table, but it's just another column. So because we are creating a calculate table, it would be a nonsense to create calculate columns there. We can just create the column altogether. One interesting engineering aspect of the template library is that when you create the date table is created in a way that the dependencies in your DAX code are automatically resolved by the library. What does it mean? If you take a look at this DAX code, let me try to explain. Remember, this is no longer the simple date with just calendar, standard calendar. This is the week calendar, right? Week calendar is more complex than that. So this variable generates a table starting from the list of the fiscal years. The result of this generate is a list of let's go here. A list of days for each period. So we generate all the days between this day and this day for this year. And this is repeated for every year. So there are two nested generate statements that for each year generate the year followed by all the days in that year. So the result of step 2, which you have, the result of calendar is a table that has one row for each day, but still only has 2 or 3 columns. Then you see that step 3 start to add start to use only a few columns. And step 5 does a number of calculation and then use only a few columns. So what does it mean? We have the intermediate step of the calculation where we have to create a variable that uses another variable, and then another variable uses another variable, and then the final variable is used in the column. Guess what? You don't want to create a table that has 24 columns that you don't use. You want only those columns that you actually use. But the intermediate step of the calculation is something that when we keep in a variable. When we want to use that information in a following step, saying, for example, give me the minimum and the maximum date within the same quarter. Now you have to get the intermediate table, you have to do an iterator over the intermediate table, and then you can trash everything and keep only the result. Well, you just have to specify each variable you want, each step you want, which column you want at the end. The template library figure out, okay, at the end of the day, you need these columns, and I will make sure that you only have these columns, and will create the intermediate step so that you are able to do all the operation that you want without worrying about how to properly sort the order of the definition of the variables so that they work. Because you could create dependencies, and at the end, the library already does this for you. So you just say, okay, this is equal to that, this is equal to that.
Yep.
It magically works. And I wanted to create this because I was in trouble to maintain the code of the initial date template I created several years ago, which was written in DAX. But when I reached more than 1,000 rows of DAX, I said, it's a little bit complex also to maintain. When there is a bug, I didn't know where to put my hands. And if I wanted to remove something, it was always an issue. This way, I cleaned up the code, and now I have something that is more flexible. And if I want to add or remove something, it's much easier, because at the end of the day, I should worry about each single part of the calculation. The final definition of the entire expression is in charge of the library. That I forgot how it works, but it just works, so it's fine.
Agreed. And there was actually one mention of I don't think it's available in the template today as an option to add as a column that's part of the table itself, but it was something that you actually had blogged about, which actually I think could be a really useful column to add, like dates with sales, or maybe you turn it on and then you select what is your date column in the model that you would want to have this. So, but I could see that as a very useful optional column to add as part of the installed calendar table.
We have this.
It is down here.
If you look at it, there is a column called date with transactions.
Yes.
That is computed with a logic that I don't remember, but is also part of the configuration you can do in Bravo. And let's see, date with transactions. So if I go back,
I use that pattern very, very regularly.
Yeah, I think I don't remember where. Maybe that it is a measure. No, it's not a measure. It's date with transaction. Okay, let's get this code. I don't know. Can I do a search here? There is no search here, right? Okay.
I think there's a hotkey to like tab through, but it's kind of like a buried feature.
I don't know. When I need to search, I do this. I use Text Studio.
Yeah.
I think I used also. No, Visual Studio Code. But so I basically wanted to find this one. So Control F and show me the previous one. Yeah, you see that we have a date with transaction is computed this way. Last transaction date is computed this way, and it is the maximum value of the column that you chose for.
So it basically just it looks across everything. Okay.
But I think that this is not the master transaction. No, wait. Yeah. Because this is yeah. So the idea is yes. And now I remember. It was more than 1 year ago. So what happens is that depending on the way you configure the definition of the range of dates, the last transaction date is assumed to be the last transaction in those tables that you connect with the date table. So if you create a relationship, usually I suggest to use the relationship to implement this logic. Or in this case, we use all the columns, which is a bad idea because, for example, we had the birthday, which is not really a good idea to keep the customer birthday in this range, because actually now we are getting data in the past too much. But because we are looking for the last transaction date, probably it just works. And because we are using the date columns in all the tables that we can connect, we end up having an idea of what is the maximum date we have in our data. So, I mean, excellent. I know that it could be not the right thing to do in all the models, but again, first of all, you can change this DAX code, but you can generate the DAX code you want by using the right parameters in Bravo. And this doesn't require to customize the JSON file of the template. But if you have a specific way to manage this, you can just customize the template. At the end of the day, you can customize the way we compute this, done, and you keep everything else the same. So you don't have to actually invent a new logic. You can just try to change a part at the beginning. Maybe try just on the code that is generated by Bravo, see if it works, and then try to implement this in the template in a second step. So first of all, make sure that it works, just changing the code, and then that could be
import and modify as needed. Yep. Oh, agreed. Thank you for showing that. I think there's let's do one question, which I think will actually be a perfect way to finish off the conversations for today, because we've talked about Bravo, but great username, Mojo Jojo. Has an
Yeah.
off-topic question of what's the next product or tool that you guys are working on that you're willing to share, if any?
I should fire myself if I tell you, so no, I cannot tell you.
Okay, so but it sounds like there is something you're working on, but you cannot speak to what that thing is. Yeah, I mean, granted, knowing you,
No
at least
comments.
I don't think you're ever
I
not
have
working
no
on
comments.
something. So
I have no comments. I'm very busy, but I have no comments. I can
yeah,
just say
that
it's very busy time. But
that's
yeah.
fair. But yes, I'm sure at some point in the future, exciting things will be coming down the pipeline. But this is neither. Yes, Donald, neither can confirm nor deny. But I
Yeah,
do want to say that this
I
has been
have
very. Go ahead.
I have no comments, but you can see that I smile a lot. Yes.
Yep, exactly. I always think of the Monty Python, was it wink wink nod nod, if you know what I'm saying? Little catchphrase. It's from one of the like famous Monty Python skits that I
Yeah,
used
yeah,
to really like.
yeah.
But Marco, this has been fantastic as always. I know like pretty universally, anytime I ever have you on, we can easily chat for upwards of like 2 hours
Yeah,
if we wanted to with no effort to get to that point. Just because there's so many fun topics to be able to dive into and good questions that come from the chat. But I appreciate you for showing this around today. I do think like Bravo is like honestly, it's the third thing that I tell people to install, like as a cornerstone. There's
Yep,
easily 12 to 15 different external tools that I have, but the three DAX Studio, Tabular Editor, two or three, and then
of course.
Bravo are the ones that are near universally applicable to pretty much just any model or report that you have. So it's exciting to see what's already available in there. And as we've already talked about with calculation groups and others, I'm sure at some point in the future, more features, more icons and stuff are going to show up over on
Yep,
the menu on the left for other stuff. So it's nice that it's more of a
definitely, definitely.
it's more of a platform of mini tools than it is a single tool, which is nice, but it allows it to grow.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it's a tool of tools.
the idea. Yes, I mean, as usual, the problem is that we don't have infinite resources, infinite amount of time. Otherwise, there would be
Yeah.
a lot of ideas to implement, and of course,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I think that there will be something this year probably. Don't be, yeah, I mean, something will happen, but it will take time because, as I said, now we're busy with other things, so that I cannot discuss now.
Yep.
But once we complete that, and it will still take a while, then of course the you know some investment, some additional. For example, I can tell you the calculation groups is the first thing. I want to have DAX patterns in Bravo, so I want to be able to. I want to do the returning customer. I want to implement the returning customer in this model, and with a few clicks, I want to do that. But in order to do that, we have to do. There are two ingredients that are missing. One ingredient is the implementation in the DAX template library of the calculation groups, which is not a big task. It's critical that probably I have to work on it, or I have to hope that someone will look at the code and understand what to do. But I know what to do. It's just I don't have time now. But that would be the second step, which is something that I cannot do because I'm not able to do that, but other people can that already working in Bravo for other things, like Daniele, for example, is the UI to define the binding between the, let's say, parameter of the template and the existing model. Now, I know that Mike Carlo already made some tools similar to that, and indeed we started to talk. Now, I don't have time to do today to work on it, and maybe that we could try to figure out whether we can, do something to save time. Both they actually made already a good job. The problem is that in order to implement in the template, we cannot get what it is as it is, and so we have to figure out how to reuse the code that they made or reuse the UI or I don't know. This is something we have to investigate. By the way, the UI in Bravo is written in TypeScript, which provides you the maximum flexibility. TypeScript means JavaScript, HTML, JavaScript. It's similar to what Power BI does for the UI. But of course, so the design of the UI, so it requires some work, and usually it is a team working. So we need different people with different skills to put everything together. And so this is something that a single person can do if they know a lot of things, and not easy. But working with 2 or 3 people, we can do that, and not in an unreasonable amount of time. But again, not too soon.
Exactly. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months some of the new features that will be coming out for that, and I'm sure there will be opportunity for us again to have you back on to talk about other exciting things as we move forward. So yeah, we'll hit the 5th milestone at that point. I think you might be actually, due to the fact that you were on with Alberto at one point, I think you are tied for a number of solo sessions with I think I've had Daniel Marsh-Patrick on about 3 or 4 times as well. But if you include the dual session that you did with Alberto, you have been on I think more times than anybody else as a recurring guest on my stream. So always appreciate you coming on. Yeah, exactly. But looking forward to having you back on at some point soon to talk about other things in the ecosystem of all this. But thank you for taking time out of your Friday night to join, and I'm sure I will see you on sometime in the future here as well.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for Yep.
I was just going to say, quick question: will you be at SQL Bits?
No, I will be in Dallas because I will be in the United States when they but Alberto will be there. So Alberto will be there.
Yeah,
he has a beacon, I think, and also a session, something like that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, he'll actually, just as a forward mention for the people on the chat, he will be on in 2 weeks, 2 Fridays from now. He'll be on the stream as well, so you'll get to see the other half of SQL AI. But yeah, thank you so much, nice. And have a great weekend, everyone, and Marco, have a great weekend as well.
You too. Thank you, everybody. Cheers. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.